Hi everyone, I'm David and welcome back to Safer FX. So it's Saturday, 20th September 2025. Thought we'd do a weekend wrap and anticipate what we might expect from the coming week. I'll go through the six majors. Generally I'll start off with the euro, but this morning I'll start with the yen, only really because I've got a position on the yen and I took it really in the run up to the London Open on Friday, anticipating maybe one additional leg up for the yen, back up to where potentially it might again run into resistance for a downside. Saturday, markets closed. You can see there that I've got the position zeroed out, but for all intents and purposes, the yen's pretty much done. So on 30-minute yen, that position was pretty cheeky on Friday. I shouldn't have really taken the position, to be quite honest, but I saw what I thought was a liquidity dip here, which I think probably was. However, if we have a look at the other five of the majors, it might explain better why I just don't think this one's got any more legs to the upside. And when the Asian opens on Monday, I'll be exiting this position. All right, we'll just kick back off, go and have a look at the ISIS US dollar Euro daily. Now, I'll just explain what you can see on the screen. It's simply the daily chart. You can all see that. Very significantly, this price here, which is about 116 flat, around about 116 flat, has been very significant all the way back to sort of July-ish this year. Essentially, the euro ran into a point where price consolidated around that price. It swung north and it swung south. Typical pattern when a market still wants to drive north. So this essentially is a liquidity dip below daily value. And then since then, it's just been really just bouncing around off that amount, a lot of retail trading going on in here. A lot of perhaps positioning for some of the bigger guys for further move north. And we had that last week. However, it's still fairly stilted. That's not to say that this coming week might actually not be an absolutely beautiful time to consider taking longs, maybe 15, 30-minute money on the euro. Essentially what I'm seeing here is that it's dipped liquidity back here, did that sort of late July, early August, been mucking around ever since. It's had the breakout this week, didn't want to go there completely, so they've driven it lower again. This orange line is actually weekly price inefficiency. So that's the point in time where if we just had a look at a weekly chart, and I'll just throw that in a little bit closer, it's quite tenuous, but this candle way back here is the first candle that the current week that's just closed candle didn't close into. So that's sort of like price inefficiency. It hasn't closed back in through there, which always good for longs. It's not particularly strong though. But if we now go down into the daily, which is now my, you can still see the weekly, the orange line's still there. On the daily, which is my green line here that I just superimposed into here. So that's Friday, that's Thursday, that's Wednesday, that's Tuesday, that's Monday. So the run started Monday, ran through Tuesday, and pretty well came to an end. And then for the last 3 days of the week, they just let it drift lower ostensibly. So there's actually quite a little bit of overhead resistance here on a daily basis. So if I flick right down now, really close, this is down into the 30-minute. That's the run that we saw earlier in the week. This is the distribution at the top. So this is effectively a reversal. So again, a consolidated either side, sold it short, sold it short, sold it short. And essentially my analysis is the bank's just basically letting this one drift down lower. However, this will be a very interesting week, say Monday, Tuesday, to see whether or not this orange line is actually taken out in any great extent. I mean, ideally what we'd like to see is another situation where, she dips for liquidity again and drives higher. And that may occur, might happen Monday, but I'm really thinking probably Tuesday or even Wednesday next week. And I'll be watching that really closely just to see what might occur there. It's really the same story across on the pound. The pound and the euro ostensibly are the same market, albeit, there's some subtle differences differences, beg your pardon, they're still trading pretty much to the same tune. So again, this is now pound daily. You can see the consolidation way back. Market stretches out, stretches liquidity, bounces around, smacks around. Again, the price on the pound that's really quite important is about 133, 134, let's call it 134 flat. 134 flat's a pretty significant price for the pound. We want to be seeing that held, and it's the same deal. She drove up during the week. She's come back down now. Relatively speaking, it's a little bit weaker than the euro, so it's come back right back down to its weekly line and its daily lines here. And if I quickly nick into the 30-minute and then just push that out again for a bit of context. Okay, so there's the down here. Here's about the 134 mark. That really needs to hold. Here's weekly price inefficiency. She's come right back to that. I can see nothing in that tells me that this is a buy on a 15 or 30-minute presently, but we'll just see how the week transposes. Essentially, I'm looking for consolidation again, another dip south, picking up the final liquidity before it actually drives again north. Maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, probably more likely if it's going to do it. But I'll certainly be posting if the pound and the euro look like they're going to set up. Cross to the Aussie. Aussie's different, although it's still a net long because of the way in which it's denominated with the US dollar. However, the Aussie's been just wandering around for weeks, months really now, most of the calendar year, just showing some signs of life in this last couple of weeks. The story, though, however, is very, very similar to the euro and the pound. So signs of life, driven lower, quickly jumping down onto the 30-minute, bouncing that out again. So you saw here where the drives up, she had dips for liquidity, another dip for liquidity there, ran up. Then you had this big distribution candle here, or beg your pardon, this structure here. So it's essentially the same thing, but in reverse. So this is shorting. So market driven higher, take out all the stops that were long, then driven it back down, markets driven down. And if I just bring that back up, very, very similar story, coming very close to its weekly level. I'm not as confident on the daily to draw any sort of, although, that this through there sort of daily, sort of what's that? So that's 166 flat, I think, on the Aussie, 166 or 165 flat. Beg your pardon, 65 cents flat on the euro, on the American. So that might be around about the level you'd think. And if it went south from there, it'd probably go well south. She's away from that at the moment. And again, we'll just have to wait to see what the week brings. But for those three, euro, pound and Aussie, Tuesday, Wednesday, there could be some nice 15-minute and 30-minute money that kicks in. And I really do think it's probably got the daily and the 4-hour money behind it, perhaps even the weekly. We'll just have to wait and see. As I say, started off with the yen for this recording. It's done what it needs to do. It's run up. Yen's quite interesting. It should actually be, for all intended purposes, going in the opposite direction from the first three because it's obviously US dollar yen. It's denominated the other way around with the US dollar. But I think this just goes to show how potentially weak the yen is against the US dollar. Again, this is weekly yen. If I jump back out there to the weekly for you, so again, same sort of concept. This orange line is weekly price inefficiency on the yen. So you've had this big move way back here. Where was that? Sort of back in July, start of July, June, July. And then it's pretty much done nothing since, but it's gone nowhere. It's not come back down. It's left this area here. So it's basically price inefficiency. So the week that we've just had, and then they're going back right back here, it's relatively weak. So it's obviously not trending, but it is holding long. If you jump down into the daily, just to give you a bit of a more exciting and a closer look at that, you can see the weekly trading this week, hammers out this candle here, drives higher, puts in this big sort of dojo-ish candle here. But you can just see here, the daily is actually indicating long in terms of price inefficiency as well, albeit it's just been terrible if your term of the view of your trades are probably, if you're thinking daily, weekly, it's far too long. All the opportunity's been in the 15-30 minute, and it's been probably intra session, maybe inter session when you could get it. There's certainly been some opportunities. However, if you're buying in positions and you're expecting, it to sort of really break out on 15 and 30-minute money, just doesn't seem to have the horsepower to do that at the moment. I can even come down onto the 4-hour for you because I've got a position. That purple line's now 4-hour. And although there is some 4-hour inefficiency, clearly, where it's been running up from here, it's quite stilted. And if I jump back out on the daily, it's running into all this overhead resistance. So there's plenty of sell orders over the top of this. So, again, my move on Friday, bit cheeky. The risk return ratio wasn't where it should have been for me to enter the position. Okay, it's profitable, but only just. And, I'll be closing that out at first opportunity come to the Asian Open. Nicking along to the CAD. Really, really interesting. So the CAD and the CHF, both very, very similar. Sort of paradoxically, you're now looking at the 4-hour. I've come in on the 4-hour just initially. Both the CAD and the CHF overwhelmingly are shorts. Anyway, you want to sort of cut it, certainly on the 15, 30 minute, which is my preferred sort of time frame. They've clearly been shorts. I've had a great short this week on this one. If you have a look at that now on the CAD, this is 4-hour CAD, that's clearly gone short again. Notwithstanding the weekly's indicating long, daily's indicating short. It's come up to its daily and it's clearly put in on this 4-hour, the close there of trading last week on Friday evening in the dying sort of hours of the New York session. She came off short. But if you look at the CHF, very, very similar. Didn't actually drive south. Quite interestingly held up there. But any trades on either of these for the coming week, they're all going to be a little bit short. So I'm not as confident with these ones in terms of selling them and selling them out as I am positive on the euro and the pound, particularly to go long sometime this week. But again, we'll have to wait and see if the market sets up. But overwhelmingly, my directional bias, if you like, on the two big majors, which is the euro and the pound, is long. I'm long Aussie too. That needs to settle out a bit. I should be shorting the yen. I've got a long in that at the moment, paradoxically, but I'll be looking for that to get weak again and go short. And the two that are very much short this week coming up will be the CAD and the CHF, Swiss franc. So stay tuned. If you're interested in sort of finding out when and where these drop, please like, subscribe and hit that bell, and I'll catch you in the next one.